I'm super excited for the session today. We have some amazing speakers. So let me actually just share my screen and get things going. So this is the third edition, like Hanya mentioned, of the webinar series. And really the goal of this webinar is to try to create a community of AI engineers to learn about MCP and also about agent development. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that's happening in the industry. I'm sure a bunch of folks saw OpenAI's Dev Day yesterday, and they announced this apps SDK where these OpenAI apps are basically MCP servers that are now, being used as the way of integrating apps into ChatGPT. And so I think there's a lot in this space that we can learn from, learn about, and also build on top of for the future that's coming. Uh, Really, the goal is to try to break through the noise and try to focus on technical innovations and the things that are informing the future of how AI applications get built. The goal is also specifically to shine a spotlight on you. We aren't really trying to sell an ad or a product or a specific company. It's really about learning about cool things that people are building with MCP and with agents. And also just a quick thing, the webinar is called Silsila, which means chain of events in Urdu. And I think it's a fitting name for a gathering of builders and researchers and developers who are building agents and especially things that are powered by MCP. So the agenda today is the theme I want to kind of like touch upon is how do you evaluate MCP servers? And I think we'll start in a particular order and progressively get towards that subject. We'll start with seeing MCPs in production, both on the client side with Goose and also really good like production grade servers from Square and Block. Then we'll talk about how people test MCP servers, and this is especially for developers of MCP servers. And so we'll talk about MCP Inspector. And then I want to spend a little bit of time towards the end also talking about evals for MCPs and for agents, but especially for MCP servers, because I think evals for MCPs is something that is just starting out and not too many people have been talking about it yet. And so I think I'm super, super excited, especially because of all the awesome speakers we have today. So first we have Ebony Lewis, who is a developer advocate at Block. And she's going to show a bunch of really cool things happening at Block with respect to MCP and kind of the story of why Block is adopting MCP en masse. Then we'll hear from Cliff Hall, who is, among other things, a maintainer of the MCP Inspector project, which I think is essential for how MCP development is happening today. It's basically the tool that I use at least every single day to kind of like debug and see what's going on under the hood of my servers. And so very excited to get some demos from Cliff. And then lastly, I'll talk a little bit about mcp-eval and also would love to like field questions. So like Hanya mentioned, if folks have questions that they want to kind of talk about as the speakers are speaking, please just leave those in the chat and I'll make sure that we get to those during the session. So without further ado, I'll stop sharing my screen. And Ebony, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and to start presenting.
Thank you. Give me one moment. Let me get my screen ready. Share. I'm going to do my entire screen. Let's hope I don't regret this. Don't steal any of my secrets if you guys see them. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to talk today. Today I was going to cover just like what MCP servers are, a little bit about how Block got into the game of MCPs. Then I was going to go into the anatomy of MCP servers, and we're going to see some in action inside of Goose. And I'm going to cover a little bit about MCP UI, something I'm super excited about. So let's get started. And you guys can see my screen. Looks good. It's saying what are MCP servers? Okay, cool. Okay, so I wanted to start off briefly, like what are MCP servers? And in the world of Goose, we don't call them MCP servers, we call them extensions. And a fun fact that probably you guys might already know, but Anthropic launched it in November of 2024, and my company Block, along with a few other companies, actually helped out with the spec. So in short, it's this open standard that helps extend agents' capabilities by giving them this common language with different tools or APIs or data sources, and it's essentially just a wrapper around them. Now, how does Goose use these extensions? I wanted to, before I go into like how it uses it, I wanted to give you guys a little background on what Goose is. So, in short, Goose is an open source AI agent that can automate tasks for you. And a fun fact is, Goose was actually created in house by like, I think it was 5 engineers. They created Goose and they were using it and they're like, okay, this is gold. Like, we just created the best thing ever. They shared it with other engineers and we're like, okay, this is actually saving a lot of time when it comes to like production and getting things out. So then they decided to open source it. So that's why Goose has been created. And the fun name about the name Goose, it actually came from the movie, I think Top Gun. And there was a goose. I don't know the movie, but I know that that's where the name came from. And I'm like, okay, cool, funny fact. I'm gonna tell the world about it. I should probably watch the movie. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
where the name Goose came from. Okay, so now that we're all familiar with what Goose is, it's an AI agent, open source, local to your machine, and what MCP servers are. I kind of just want to talk about how they all work together and the conversation that they have. At least I like to call it a little conversation. So it starts off with the user, like myself or you. You go to your AI agent. This could be any AI agent, or it could be Goose, and you give it a problem or just anything you want it to solve or look into. It'll take that prompt, that problem you've given it, along with any context it has. So whether it has access to your code, maybe you want to summarize a doc. So it'll take that doc, all of that, and then it'll also take a list of its capabilities. Those are its extensions, those MCP servers, and it'll bring it over to its large language model. So most AI agents are amazing at having the context, being able to automate these tasks on your behalf, but they don't know how to do anything. Like they don't have the brain or the knowledge to come up with this amazing plan. And that's where large language models come in. And the cool thing about Goose is it's LLM agnostic, so you could bring any LLM to it. So whichever LLM you love the best, you can plug it right into Goose. So it goes to the LLM and it's like, please help me. They want me to do this. These are my capabilities. This is the MCP service that I have access to. In the context that I have, what in the world do we do? The LLM is excited because LLM doesn't have access to these. It can't go on your machine and do anything unless you copy and paste things to it. So it's super excited. It's like, oh my God, this is great. And then the conversation starts. So the LLM says, okay, I want to use this capability, this extension, and I want us to run this game plan. So it gives it to the AI agent. The AI agent goes to the MCP server. It calls on the tools. And while they're trying to fix or work on this problem on your behalf, you're also getting the updates that you normally would see in your chat window, which is pretty cool. So now that we know how they all work together, I thought it'd be cool if we kind of break down the anatomy of it, because I know we're going to go into the inspector. So let's just see what makes up an MCP server. And it's super simple. Once you know what one basic MCP server is, you know them all. Obviously, you can make it more complex with a whole bunch of tool calls. But this one that we're going to break down is focusing on addition. So it's just an MCP server that adds 2 numbers, nothing crazy. In the beginning, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to import any SDK that you want. There are official SDKs on the Model Context Protocol GitHub repo, but I like this community one from FastMCK. I can't even speak. From FastMCP. I prefer it. I'm TypeScript. That's the language that I feel most comfortable with. There's many different languages out there for SDKs if this is not your go-to language. So you're going to import it so that it could spin up an MCP server for you quickly. Next, what you're doing here is you're giving your MCP server an identity. So you're initializing it with an instance of MCP server. So you're giving it a name and you're giving it a version. Next, we're going to add tools. And tools are literally the most important thing of your MCP servers in AI agentic world. Without it, it can't execute anything. And this is mostly how they'll execute their different API calls through tool calling. So we're going to give it a name. And again, the description doesn't have to be long, nothing crazy, but it needs to be clear. And in this one, we're adding 2 numbers, very straightforward. And so that your LLM agent won't get confused and will know exactly when to call this tool. This is important when you have a whole bunch of tools within your MCP servers. Next are your parameters. This is just like any other function that you'll see. If you want a tool to do something, you need to provide arguments in some cases, not all the time. And this one is just specifying we need 2 numbers when this tool calling is happening. Then is the execute. This is the part of you like providing your body, telling it exactly what's going to happen. This is the logic that your AI agent actually never sees. It sends its data and it gets a response back. But this is literally saying, add those 2 numbers up and give me the response. And that's it. That's the anatomy of majority MCP servers. They're always going to have a tool, they're going to have an instance. I mean, you might not have to use an SDK. I would prefer to use an SDK when spinning up an MCP server, but if you want to get crazy, you can and not use one. Now let's jump into Goose. Hopefully you guys see what I want you to see. Do you guys see Goose?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yay. Cool. Okay. So this is what Goose looks like. At the top, you'll have like your total sessions. You'll have your total tokens, which looks crazy. You'll have your recent chats. I use this a lot. At the bottom, you'll see your directory, the directory that you have Goose running in. Your tokens, when you're in your conversation, you can see how many tokens you're using. And then down here, when I said Goose is LLM agnostic, you can put in any large language model that you want to use. Another cool feature that I use a lot that I figure I might as well just talk about real quick is this lead worker setting. So say that there's these two LLMs that you really love to use. One is like fast wait, fast. It's really good at execution. Another one is really good at planning. You can pair them together and use them in the same session. I use this a lot and I really, really love it. And then there's different modes, autonomous, manual. We don't have to get in all that. Let's go to extensions, what we're here for. So on this sidebar here, you would go down to extensions, and we're just going to plug an extension in so you can see how simple it is. I already have a bunch of extensions here. At the top, you'll see which ones are enabled. But if you wanted to add your own extension, you would click here and you pick your type. Standard IO is majority of the MCP servers you'll find would be that one. There's SSE and streamable HTTP. Straightforward, you put your name, your command, environment variables. If it's applicable to your MCP server, you would click add, and then you're good to go. Your AI agent will automatically have access to whatever API calls you want or tools or databases through that MCP server that you enabled it. So today, I'm just going to do a really simple one because I want to show you MCP UI 2. Let me see, which one is it? It is this one. Okay, so I'm going to do file system. So all I did was toggle it on, successfully enabled. Then we're going to go to chat. I'm going to say, hey, Goosey, can you list my... Oh, I always get a typo when I'm live. I swear I could spell in real life. Available files, please. So with file system, you have to give it access to specific files. So it may tell me I don't have... Oh, it's doing its thing. You may get an error saying like you don't have access to the repo that you're in right now, but we're good to go for this case. Okay, so it listed it for me, super straightforward, but I wanted to get into MCP UI because I've been super excited about it. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but MCP UI, what it does, it extends MCP servers. So right now we've gotten this text response, which is great. It gave me what I needed. But with MCP UI, you get these interactive interfaces or UIs right inside your chat. So I'm going to go back to my extensions and we're going to enable this one here. And this one I added a UI in it so we can see it. We'll go back to the chat. I'm just going to copy. Oh, and there's also this edit feature, which is really cool. Drop this feature real quick. It's really cool. Say you're working with your AI agent and you realize like, okay, wait, I want to go in a different direction. You can completely edit this message out, send it, and then you'll have a new session within that session. It's pretty cool. Or maybe a typo, but with AI agents, typos don't really matter. Okay, so we're going to do this again. And now we've enabled our MCP UI compatible MCP servers. So we should get a really pretty UI back. And my internet's been a little wonky. Why didn't we get it? Let me see if I turned it on. I did. Let's see. Let me do it one more time. I feel like this is normal for demos because I just did this like a few minutes before hopping on. And she worked just fine.
Don't you love live demos?
Every time. It's like a test to your character. All right, let's see. Can you stand the pressure? Okay. Hey, Goosey, can you list my available typo B? See what it does. Goose is thinking. Normally, Goose is way faster than this. My internet's just been a little wonky. See. It knows which one. Let's go, let's go, let's go. We need some music. Why is it doing that? Okay, fair not. I have this one already open. Hold on. I'm opening everything that we don't need. Okay. Okay. So for some reason, it's not working for me, but I did previously do it with Cloudinary. So I took the Cloudinary MCP server and I added MCP UI to it. So normally you would get just a response like this. You would be able to view your image, resize it, see all the different changes you can make. But with this one, I get this really cool UI right in the chat. So I gave it an image. And then down here, I could do something cool. I could tweet it. It just opened up a page for me. I'm going to send it over here so you guys can see it. So I didn't write this tweet, Goose did, image included. So that's just a UI action within MCP UI that adds the interaction part to it. Then you can also make a meme, but this is really like not, I didn't code it the best. So the memes sometimes don't really make sense, to be honest, but it created this prompt for me. So that's another UI action called prompt, but that is it. I'm going to hop back to, oh, well, I gave some, but sometimes they don't make sense. Okay, so Galaxy Brain. See, I'm not even gonna read it. I have to work on that a little more, but you get the gist and why I'm so excited about MCP UI. Like, I'd rather see this over this being my response. So,
That's
I'm
really interesting.
right. I feel like it's so honestly, I think it's so cool. I have a whole like blog
Super
on it,
cool.
truly for you guys to like read through. But next, I wanted to just share some resources. So obviously Goose is one. Feel free to download it. There's CLI, there's desktop, which one that I showed today, Windows, Linux, everything. And then this is my MCP-UI blog. So I wrote a blog to tell you exactly how you can take your MCP servers and make them MCP-UI compatible. It's really straightforward and easy to read through. And then if you guys would like, you can join our Discord. You can ask me questions on there. You can ask, I can share my code with you if you want to like look at the code. And that's basically how you learn. That's how I learn too. I can share that with you. And that is it. You could scan this if you want to find me on LinkedIn. But thank you for listening. I hope you learned something and I hope you're inspired to tinker around, either create your own MCP server or add MCP UI to an existing one. That is
Thank you, Ebony.
it. Thank you.
I'm curious actually. So I think one of the cool parts that you showed towards the end with MCP UI, that's also looks like how ChatGPT apps are structured, where they have these, they're calling it widgets, but it's the same idea that like these MCP servers have custom UI components that the client can render. So I'm curious if like maybe like the Square MCP server or other MCP servers under development at Block, are they planning on leveraging that kind of functionality as well?
Yes, they are. Specifically the Square one, we're working on it. It's not public yet, but stay tuned, it will be. At the moment, so like I said, Goose is an MCP UI client, but there are, I think, 5 UI actions. The one I showed was 2. I showed the link and the prompt UI actions. So once we have the other 3 fully baked into Goose, then we'll have that live for you guys to play around with.
Nice. And how are you seeing the MCP UI piece of it? Is that like basically you design, the server developer designs the UI that they want their client to kind of see and use and interact with, and then they ship the server with the UI?
Yeah, so it's actually really simple. You're just rendering it in an iframe. So yeah, so the person that has the server, they will create that code within their server. So whenever any AI agent plugs into that server, it has access to it. Just like, I wish maybe I could show you the code real fast. Let's see.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay, let me see. I have like a demo one. I just recorded a live a pre-recorded workshop. Can you guys see the code?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right, we're gonna scroll down. Okay, so this function right here is what's giving me my UI within this dog MCP server that I created. It's super straightforward. My return is like all the code, how I want it to look, the styling and everything. And then down here is one of the prompt messages. This was the UI action where I clicked make a meme, not this specific code, but that's the example that I
Right.
showed. This is all it is for that
Mm.
prompt one. And then for the link one, when I had it go to Twitter or X, sorry, this is this is the code for that. And then I just want to show how simple it is when you're returning it. This is all you have to add to your return, like in your tool.
Mm.
That is that making sense,
Okay.
everybody? Yeah. It's super
Yeah.
That's super
forward.
cool.
It's super straightforward and it's so fun. And I just showed the iframe one, but there's DOM as well, manipulation that you could work with. There's so many different ones. And I think, did I add a link for you guys? I didn't, but I think Kanye has the link for MCP-UI dev. Oh, I see it. The MCP-UI docs,
Yeah.
where you'll be able to look, you could look more into it. But it's honestly really fun to play around with.
Awesome. There's a question on the chat about Goose. The question is, does Goose build its own persona based on how you interact with it? People noticed that you were calling it Goosey.
Um, so I read a study. I don't even remember where, but I know when the nicer you are to your LLM or your AI agent, the nicer it is to you. And I don't know, I swear by it. The nicer I communicate with Goose, the harder it goes for me. There'll be times where like it's not working, and I'll be like, Goose, I'm trying to show you off. Like I have a demo, and it will just get its act together. It'll just completely perform the way I want. But yeah, just like any LLM, it'll start to tailor to you the more you talk to it, the responses it gives you will be more tailored to the way you communicate with it. But yeah, Goosey is just me being nice.
Amazing. I love it. Well, thank you so much. And I think Kanye also shared a bunch of the links you mentioned
Thank
in
you
chat
so much.
as well. But really appreciate you sharing all of this.
Thank you so much for I don't even know how to stop sharing. Thank
I
you
think
so much for letting me be here.
awesome. And next, I'd love to welcome Cliff as well. Cliff, feel free to present your screen or however you want to demo this, but I'm super excited to hear more about MCP Inspector. Oh, you're muted, by the way.
I don't have the Ebony is a
Am
hard
I
act to
still
follow.
sharing? Oh, am I still sharing my screen?
Nope.
Oh,
No.
okay. Sorry. Continue. Sorry, Cliff.
Oh, that was awesome. That was a super awesome thing. It's actually the first time I've had a chance to see how you do the MCP UI stuff. It's been like in my to do to dive into the list for so long. So thank you so much for showing that. So I'm not going to have a big presentation. I haven't gotten any. I haven't put together a slide deck or anything like that. Ebony is always far more prepared in that respect. Does a whole lot of presentations. But what I want to do today is just show you the MCP inspector and the let's see here. Yeah. So when you're developing MCP servers, the very first thing that you find out is you need um, some reference servers to see how they're actually built. And, because you've got the spec, you can go to the MC model context protocol.io and read the spec and see all of the good stuff that it supports. And that'll get you really excited. But then you're like, okay, how do I implement this? And you start out with a project, maybe you do something, like Ebony did there with a fast MCP, and you got a nice little quick start thing. But however you go about it, you're going to start realizing, like, as you get deeper into it, like, if I want to do sampling, if I want to do elicitation, if I want to do, like features like subscribable resources or things like that, how do I do it? How does, if I'm just doing it with the TypeScript SDK or Java SDK or whatever MCP SDK that we're using, there are packages built on top of those that make it even easier. But however, you need to know how to implement the things. And then as you're implementing the things on your own with your own server, you need to be able to test them and see if, sanity check. Is it sending the right stuff? Does stuff come in, when I send stuff in, am I handling it right? And all of that. So that's what the MCP inspector is for. And we'll throw out a link to the repo where the MCP inspector lives. There is a repository where you can get it. There's an npm package. So if you have Node installed, you can just do npx at model context protocol /inspector and run it, and launch it that way. You don't have to, clone the repo and locally and build it and run it. If you want to, you can. It'll give you a great insight into how the client side of MCP works. It's a nice open source client, and there's another repo here that a server's repo. I'm running we have a reference server called Everything, and that's kind of the everything in the kitchen sink. We try to implement all of the features of the protocol in this one server. And it's kind of crazy, and I don't know what percentage of everything we actually have implemented there. We're constantly trying to get to 100, but we'll see.
It reminds me of an everything bagel.
Yes. And from that,
Overwhelming.
the everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
That's what the everything server is. And so in the background here, I have launched the inspector from my local instance of it, and I have also launched the server, the everything server. We can dive into the code of that a little bit later, but I'll just go ahead and connect to it. And first thing that you see is a little toolbar here. We've got various things that you can look at. This is kind of silly, it being an actual tab all to itself. We're going to have to change that. But the primary things when people say MCP is just a wrapper for APIs, right? Why do we even need that? Well, it's not. There's more stuff to it, and the inspector kind of lays that out for you, and it's nice. If you fire up the everything server and you fire up the inspector and have a look at it, you can see that MCP goes a little bit deeper. One of the things is resources, and minimize that. Get you out of the way. So here, the everything server has created some number of resources here that I could have, and a resource can be anything. It can be a blob, it can be text, it can be a dynamic construct. I have a server. The first MCP server I wrote had state machines operating inside of the server, and you sent commands and actions to them, and they changed state and so forth. And so that each state machine was a resource, and so clients can subscribe to that resource and see, okay, wow, the state of the state machine changed. So what a resource is anything you want it to be. If you can give it, if you can give it a URI of some sort that is unique and present it in the server, you've got a resource, and you can subscribe to it. That's this little dynamic, this button here that says subscribe. That is that lets me say, okay, if this resource changes, send me a notification. And we'll see a little notification coming up here, and the everything server will sit here. If I have subscriptions, they'll send me a little notification saying, hey, this resource you subscribe to is updated. It's simulating that the resource has changed, just to show you how that works. And I can say, let's unsubscribe. And then those updated messages will stop. That's just one part of resources, and you can have a resource template where you can say, okay, well, this was resource number one. I've got a resource template where I can put in the resource ID and read that particular resource. I don't have to get the list and then choose it. If there's a template, then I can put in some parameters into a template in order to fetch that resource. So that's kind of how resources are. Prompts work kind of similarly. You can say, okay, I've got a prompt, and a prompt is going to be a client may need, your server may want to provide various prompts that are related to the functionality that it provides. And so let's say that you have a server that is for maintaining spreadsheets, right? Or office documents, you know. So you might have a prompt that tells you to, that is a way of telling the server, hey, tabulate all of, column A and, give me a result. So that if the user does that a lot, especially if it's more complex, it's better to go ahead and not make the user have to figure out how to type in the words and, engineer their prompt to be wonderful. You can provide a stable of prompts that are great for working with the stuff that your server provides. And so here you can have a prompt that says, this is just, I think, really not sure what it's wanting here, what this prompt is wanting here. Okay, so here is,
This is really a prompt template, right? Like the idea is that you can essentially you don't have to feed in these array of messages every single time. You can very quickly get them, and they're parameterized with some of the arguments to construct them based on the temperature that you entered or the style that you mentioned.
yes, exactly. If you're usually if people are tabulating columns often, and the only thing that you need to know is which column, then you could say a prompt that says, please tally all the numbers in column and then a parameter. And then so you present that prompt, you present a UI to the user that collects that parameter, says which column would you like to tabulate?
Right.
And then it fills in the prompt and then sends that to the LLM. And so then the LLM goes, oh, okay, well, I'm going to call the tool the tabulate tool. And I'm going to pass it the column that is in this prompt and so forth.
Right.
So that way, it's just much easier on the user. And you can have a prompt that has a resource associated with it. So
this is, I guess, similar to an attachment that I attach a PDF to a prompt or something like that.
Exactly. Previously in the resources section, we saw that there are a number of resources that this server provides. And here is a particular resource number one. And that could be, it might not be a resource ID, it might be a file name or something like that, so that you could say, hey, can you summarize the profit and loss and tell me whether my company's going to live through this next quarter, or whatever. And so it would then get the profit and loss resource, a report that your server exposes as a resource, and stick that into the prompt that's going to the LLM. So
nice.
yeah, prompts are, you could, a simple prompt can just be, hey, just words. That's it. Just send this to the LLM. That's not super useful, but definitely prompts with arguments and prompts that include resources give us a really great way of being able to simplify the business of having a user be able to say, hey, I want to give you certain information, some of which may be fixed resources that we have access to, and then, just do the thing with it.
Yeah.
Right, without having to be a prompt engineer and possibly have it work better or worse depending upon how much effort they put into the prompt. If the server engineer can engineer this prompt to be optimal
Right.
for how it works. So that's resources and prompts. Already we're seeing that MCP is more than just an API wrapper, right? We're just now getting the tools. So the server exposes a bunch of tools, and I'm just going to clear some of these notifications here. And some simple tools that just let you say, hey, echo back this message here, or the classic one that Ebony showed. Let's add 2 numbers. All right. A long-running operation. Here's the thing. When you have a long-running operation, you might want to get notifications about the progress, right? Which could then be used to show a progress bar. Out of a total of 5, we're 4 along, or we're 3 along, or we're 2 along, or whatever like that. So in that way, you can give the client some hints about, how much time is left. And hopefully, I did a Windows 11 upgrade in a VM yesterday and saw that they still have that wonderful thing where it says it'll be about 15 minutes, it'll be about an hour and a half, it'll be about 3 hours. It just keeps getting longer and longer.
Now, Cliff,
Hopefully you don't have that.
I'm curious, what are like some pieces of the inspector that people are not familiar with that you wish people were more familiar with, or things that like it can do that are like that maybe pleasant surprises for folks who are building MCPs?
Well, a couple of features that are not okay. So tools are obviously there. A feature that isn't implemented very often that's really cool and people need to be aware of, and client developers need to get on the bandwagon and support this, and server developers need to be able to use it as elicitation. And with elicitation, you can run a tool, but then that tool gets along at a certain point and says, hey, I need a little input from the user here before I can go forward. Whoa, got a little error there. Oh, that's probably because I've got a timeout that's not. Let me throw some more time on there. Right, things time out there in the inspector. So let's go back to tools. Let's go to elicitation. This is a tool that starts elicitation. So if I run the tool, first thing it does is go, hey, I need to grab some information from the user here. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite number? And what kind of pets do you like? I have 5 cats right now, so I'm going to say cats. And I'm going to submit that. Okay, so at this point, the tool has enough information to complete its job. And it has come back and said, okay, well, the user's favorites are this and so forth. And here's the actual raw content that came back. So that's
very cool. Like, so I just want to point out to folks that like basically this tool was paused at that point, right, while the form was shown, and was waiting for you to provide input before it proceeded execution.
Exactly. So, and now the LLM could have chosen that tool. It could be, you could have provided a prompt and the LLM is chugging along and it's going, okay, I've called tool A, tool B, tool C. Oh, but right now I need to call tool D. And tool D is going, oh, okay, cool, but I need to talk to the user first. So it's looping you in, right? This is not, I mean, just because we invoke the tool from this thing is, I want to make it clear that this can be part of an LLM's, part of a agentic workflow, at which point the tool can decide, hey, I need the user to provide a little bit of input here. And that can be things like, hey, I'm getting ready to, I've collected all this information and maybe you want to review it first. This is what we've come up with. Is this good? We're going to go ahead and write this document, and then we're going to move ahead with the rest of the plan, which is kind of, we don't want to move on until we're sure that we have a good plan in place, right?
We're eliciting user input.
Exactly. So that's super important thing for.
Sorry to cut you off, Cliff, but just in the interest of time, actually, I wanted to ask two things. One is what's next for Inspector, and second, if someone wanted to get involved and contribute, because this is an open source project and you are just a maintainer of this project, and you're just contributing a ton of time just making sure that the community is has this tool available. How do people get involved?
So there's a couple of things, and you've got the link you can throw up there to the users with the servers repo and the inspector repo. There are a whole bunch of other repos involved with the whole protocol project, and you can get into them from there. But coming in from my perspective, if you wanted to help with the inspector or the reference servers, like for instance, you got the everything server here, and you find out, oh, well, this is really cool, but there's this feature of the spec that isn't implemented. And I'd really like to put that in my server, but I don't see it. I don't see a way that I can see it tested so that I can feel confident moving forward with it. So, you might go to the servers repo and just check out the everything, check out the repo, fork the repo, and then create a branch and add the feature, and then create a pull request to our repo. And we'll, you can tag me at Cliff Hall, and I'll have a look at it. Or otherwise, someone tending the farm will have a look at it. It's definitely not gonna disappear into the quagmire. Hopefully, a lot of people are putting in PRs to say, "Hey, put my server on the README." There's a massive list of repos, which, by the way, if you're looking for, hey, what are people doing with MCP servers anyway? What ones are out there? And I'd like to look at their code. Just go to the servers repo README and just look at the massive amount of official and community contributed servers that are out there, and you can just go trolling through the repos and see all of the code, and it's a great place. But sometimes it's hard to swim through all the PRs of getting onto that README to find oh, hey, I'm adding this feature, right? So you might, if you're doing that, you might want to tag me directly just to say, hey, here's a feature I need to get this going. And that's awesome. Same with the inspector. But one thing I would like to point out, though, if you don't feel confident or ready to put the effort into fork the repo and create a PR and put it in, and maybe or maybe not get it approved or go through the process. If you're not there yet, you can still help a ton by just going to the issues column of either of those repos or any of them in the project. You can go to the Model Context Protocol organization on GitHub and find all of our stuff, and find issues in the thing that you're interested in. Like people complaining about this, that, or the other thing, saying, hey, I'd like to have this feature, whatever, weigh in on it. Just hop in the comments and say, hey, yeah, I think that'd be a great feature. And this is why I think it would be good, you know, to help upvote that that feature request. Or hey, oh, I'm having that problem that you're saying too, and I tried this workaround, it seems to work for me. Or, you know, it used to work in this version, but it didn't. You know, if you can add some elucidation to a person's issue, or maybe even go, oh, you just need to put in this little argument here and it will work for you. You might be able to close an issue, and you know, that is a form of help that doesn't require any kind of approval
Right.
or anything. You can just
So
get in
really
there and
just get
help.
involved in any way you can. And I just
Absolutely.
want to also point out, like, I think I see this as the debugger for MCP. Like, you can't really develop things in the MCP space without Inspector, and you've been like the leading edge of just making sure that we have this incredible tool available to us. And so I also wanted to thank you for all your contributions. And
Thank
I
you.
think so thank you so much for presenting this, and I'm sure folks can take a look there. Hania will share some links afterwards as well. Last but not least, I just wanted to talk about evals as well. I think we showed, like, Ebony, thank you for showing an amazing MCP client with Goose and MCP servers, and even like building a basic one. And then now we saw like how you inspect and debug MCP servers. And I want to like double click one step further now into evals for MCP servers, because I think that's where things are headed as we get into more sophisticated use cases with MCP. And so what we've built, this is like kind of, we did a soft launch. It's on GitHub. It's all open source. We haven't really like talked too much about it, but I wanted to like just cover some of the high level concepts of how we think about testing MCP servers. And so we have this project called mcp-eval. It's basically a test framework for MCP servers and agents. And if you think about MCP servers, they're really meant to be used by agents. And as a server developer, your job is to design tools and resources that can be used effectively by agents and by MCP clients. And so it's really, really important to actually like test the quality of your MCP server in agentic environments to see if it's a good server or not. And so there are like a lot of servers out there, and they're like a varying quality in terms of like how they actually behave in agentic environments. And so really that's what mcp-eval is designed for, is to test MCP servers to ensure that they will work well in the kind of agentic environments that you are trying to use them in. It's about evaluating agents as well, which we'll talk about as a consequence of like testing the MCP servers. And really it's like, you know, you want to track performance, monitor latency, token usage, cost, all the kind of things that you care about when you're actually using an agent. So the core idea is basically that in order to test an MCP server, the best way to do it is to connect it to an agent and to see how it performs. And so you run a few scenarios with your test agent, and then you measure what happened during the trace of that agent run to see whether the MCP server performed as expected. And so things like, was the right tool called? Was it called with the right arguments? Did the tool call succeed? But it's not just tools. There's also like other parts of MCP servers. But like, was the objective that the agent was trying to accomplish accomplished? Was the agent efficient at accomplishing that objective? You can kind of like measure all of those things if you looked at how an agent trace went. And if you do this enough times, then you can have a pretty good sense of like how the server is going to perform in different kinds of scenarios. And so really what we're trying to do with mcp-eval is to model evals as integration tests. You ideally want like this suite of tests, which are these suite of scenarios that you want to test your server in, to run as part of your CI/CD pipeline. And each test case is basically an agent simulation where the assertions are run to validate that the behavior of the server is going to like work in a real scenario. And you ideally want to, like, as you make changes to your MCP server, you want to rerun these tests to make sure that they're like that you don't have regressions, just like you do with like developing software. And so this is what it looks like. I'll show a quick code overview again in a sec as well. But on the right side, you kind of see it looks very similar to like unit testing or integration testing. It's really just a test framework to enable that to be possible. There's a test agent, which is basically something you can configure with like an instruction, MCP servers it connects to, and then you run it with a series of like scenarios. In this case, again, we're talking about calculators today. So This one is trying to see, use the calculator to add two numbers, and then make sure that the calculator tool was called, make sure that it was called with the right parameters, make sure that it contains the right response. And so that's like, think of this as assertions, but like there are all sorts of more complex things you can do. You can even have LLM judge criteria that are assertions. And then you can have these test cases that are really reflective of how a server should be tested. That gets more and more sophisticated depending on your server and the tools that you're using. And so the point is that good MCP servers are critical to build good agents, and also that evaluating MCP servers is just as important as evaluating your overall agents. And so the first step you do with mcp-eval is you define a test agent. The agent is connected to the server that you are trying to test. Then you define your assertions. And I talked about a few of these, like was the right tool called? Did the objective succeed? Even like LLM judge criteria for how things happen, like what happened, because in some cases, like you may want to say that the quality of the summary is, adherent to some style guideline or something. And that is not really possible to test as a like deterministic assertion, but you could ask another like high quality LLM to like a large model to kind of figure out what your criteria is for evaluating that, and then score it based on that. And then you just run run the agent and trace the information. And in our case for mcp-eval, we have open telemetry that we use to trace the entire agent run. And then we're able to like basically measure things across the trace and the span tree to kind of figure out what happened over the course of that run and compute metrics based on that. And actually, there's one more thing you could do. Once you have all of this, you could actually use the eval report and the metrics that you are generating as a way of optimizing your MCP server. Because if you think about like any tool call descriptor in your MCP server, or really anything that an agent is going to see, it's effectively a prompt. And so you're able to use these metrics to optimize the tool call descriptors or any prompt-like definition or system instructions that are in your MCP server. And so let me show you what this looks like to make it very concrete. So what I have here is I'm actually trying to test this fetch server. This is one of the prototypical, like I think Cliff mentioned, there are a few sample servers, reference servers in the servers repo in MCP, and fetch is one of them. And fetch is as simple as it gets. It's a single server with a single tool as part of it called fetch, which lets you get data from the internet, query URLs, and basically like kind of like control how much information you get from that website. But like it's really simple in terms of that. And so I wanted to like create a set of unit tests for the fetch MCP server. And so here you have this config that for your mcp-eval test suite, where you're kind of configuring how you connect to the MCP server. mcp-eval is implemented in Python, but the server can actually be written in any language. All you need to do is be able to like connect to it over MCP. And so it could be even like a remote MCP server that's being used here. It could be like, in this case, it's running over standard IO. And it can be implemented in any language, the server itself, even if your test suite for it is written in Python. And then there are a few definitions that you can also configure. You could even configure like the agent definitions for your test agent and in the config file itself, which is really useful. But you could also define those in your code. And so I want to show some like of the examples of like writing these test cases because of how simple they are. So we have basically mcp-eval ships with a couple of these like decorators. In this case, this is a task decorator. Just think of it like a jest or PyTest style kind of decorators for writing your test. Each test case gets the test agent that you want to run as well as a test session. And then on the agent, you can just like run the agent. So in this case, I'm testing this agent by saying fetch the content from example.com. And this agent is connected to the fetch MCP server. And so then I can basically assert that the tool was called and that the name of the tool was like fetch, and that the content that was returned contains example domain. I can assert that the success rate for it was 100%. What is between 0 and 1, like 1.0 would mean it's 100%. And then I can get like more and more sophisticated. I could have even like regex style output matchers. I could have LLM judge style rubric, where in this case, I'm checking that like there's content extraction and a meaningful summary produced from this, because in this case, my agent scenario was fetch this information from this URL and then summarize the main content. And then I can even set like minimum score for the LLM judge criteria. When this runs behind the scenes, there are all these like LLM or agent traces that are being collected, and this is what's used to validate whether the assertion was successful or not. And then when I mentioned PyTest, we actually already have a PyTest module, so you can actually run these as PyTest style tests with exactly the same syntax that I just showed. And I actually ran this just before this, and this is what you get. Like for anyone who's written PyTest style tests, this will be very familiar. You have a couple of tests. Some of them pass, others fail. The ones that failed, you get like very nicely formatted output of the agent run to see what was the expected value and what was the actual value and why the assertion failed. And so you were able to then like go deeper and to kind of debug what's going on from here. And then you can even like create, there's like a nice text, like terminal UIs are really popular these days. So we invested a bunch of time in getting, like nice test reports in the terminal itself. But you could also get reports that are generated over Markdown or as like HTML pages. And so here I have like some tests that I ran, and you can see a bunch of them succeeded, but one of them failed. And again, you can kind of see like the LLM judge expected the score to be 0.85, but it got 0.5. And it even gave me a helpful explanation of why it marked it like that low. And then I can like go deeper into where this assertion was in my test case and kind of like debug further from there. So really we're trying to model unit test style behavior or integration test style behavior for evaluating MCP servers. The other thing is everything I talked about, you can actually think of it for agent evaluation as well. Like for when you call agents, they're also calling tools. They're making like connecting to MCP servers. They're planning. They're doing all sorts of complex things. And a lot of the same assertions that we just discussed are also applicable to testing agents. And so in order to use mcp-eval to test an agent that uses MCP, you just switch the test agent to an actual production agent that you're using, and you just run those scenarios with that. So it's really that simple to be able to like, you test both the MCP servers or that you're building if you're a server developer, or test an agent that you're building with MCP servers if you're an agent developer. And if you're both, you can have like test cases for both of those things. And so I would recommend folks get started at mcp-eval.ai. Like I mentioned, we've kind of soft launched this. We haven't really talked about this all that much outside of this webinar. And so you'd be some of the first users to kind of like give this a shot. But really, we have a bunch of docs on mcp-eval.ai to get started. One of the cool things I'll mention at the very end is actually we invested a bunch of time in creating some CI/CD like GitHub actions for some of this. And so one of the things you'll get actually is these two badges. One is mcp-cov, which is we created this new metric called MCP tool coverage, where the idea is, does your test suite cover all the tools that your MCP server exposes? Just like you have code coverage, we wanted to have like a metric that lets you kind of see how the quality of your MCP server test suite by seeing how many tools are being exercised from that. And then you can also get like really like test pass failure results. It's not always a bad thing to have failures, by the way. Like in this case, we're maybe pushing the server to the limit. These are non-deterministic environments that we're like operating in. And so thinking about like assertions and test cases for MCP servers, you really have to model them similar to how you would think about like testing and evaluating agents. Anyway, so check this out at mcp-eval.ai and let us know what you think. We'd love to like get some early beta testers to try this out before we do a bigger launch. And there's also a script for the CLI called generate, which lets you like, you can just give it an MCP server that you want to test, and it will try to like use an agent to actually generate test cases for you as a starting point as well. Let me just see if there are any questions. Okay, so Zach asks, I have to be my own moderator here, so I apologize. I'm just going to read through some of the chat messages. Zach asks, you spoke about, or all three of us spoke about testing, UI, and human in the loop, but what about memory? Can you give some info about how you're handling that part of the stack? Maybe Ebony, do you want to talk about memory for Goose? Is there a concept like that folks are thinking about there?
Well, with Goose, it's just local to your machine. So as far as memory, I can't go much deeper than that. That it
Yeah.
just saved on your machine. So maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, but it looks like Cliff may be able to
Yeah.
provide more input.
Yeah, I will just say that you can there in the reference servers repo there is a memory MCP server.
Memory
And
across chats. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
uh, so yeah, there's a whole lot of, I mean, there are like companies out there like Zep and
yeah.
lots of companies that are trying to attack that on various levels. But for the simplest level, a simple MCP server like the one in the reference servers repo can get you
Right.
started, and can also be a starting point for you to figure out how you want to handle it yourself,
Yeah.
maybe.
And
Yeah.
I'll actually mention, I would also recommend thinking about like plugging in memory through MCP as either resources or like Cliff said, like as external MCP servers. The other thing I'd recommend thinking about, especially when it comes to agents, is actually not just memory from the like history or chat perspective, but even memory from the procedural perspective. Like how did an agent go about solving an open-ended task in the past? How did it break it down? What was the plan? Did it work or fail, or did it succeed or fail in that? Because that can be used to inform like future similar tasks that the agent comes across, and it should be able to learn from that. And over time, it can improve based on that. It's almost like you can think of it almost like reinforcement learning, but in like a very rudimentary capacity. And so that's another thing that we are thinking about for MCP agent, Zach. And then there was a question on how does it work with non-deterministic agent outputs. Ian asked this, I presume, for mcp-eval. And I think really the idea is for anything that's, so there are things that should not be non-deterministic. Like if you expect that an agent should pick your MCP server tool to be called, then that should be an assertion that's like pretty deterministic. And in fact, if it isn't picking your tool at the time that you expect it to, then that's a sign that maybe like the tool call descriptor is not as strong as it should be. And so you need to like iterate on the server design. That's actually the point of mcp-eval, is to surface issues like that. The other thing is like, let's say an agent generates a summary or something that is a non-deterministic output. In that case, you could pass that into an LLM judge style assertion, where then like you're fighting non-determinism with more non-determinism, so to speak. And so there are ways of doing that. We model it as assertions because like I think that's the right model to think about testing these things in a more like in a more structured way. But what the assertions are could be non-deterministic themselves potentially.
But that's how GANs work, right? That's how,
Yeah,
like, we
exactly.
start with a cloud of points and we go, is it a dog yet? And there's a
Yeah, right.
judge that goes, nope, doesn't look like a dog to me. So we generate more pixels until eventually the
Exactly.
judge goes, yeah, that's a dog.
Exactly. Um, I'll answer your question. Maybe this will be the last thing, Zach, we can discuss. And also thank you folks for staying a little bit over time as well. In terms of like agent self-reflection, the way we've been thinking about modeling it in MCP agent is actually through prompts themselves. So the system prompt would actually be updated in a dynamic way, where given an original objective that comes in, there's some memory store of procedural state that is used to determine like similar tasks that were solved by the agent in the past, and then basically feed that in as a system instruction of memory, both positive and negative examples of like maybe the plan that was used in previous cases, or like just general like learnings. And the other thing at the very end of an agent run would be a serialization step of like basically forming that procedural memory and then saving that into that external memory store. So that's the way we're thinking about modeling that. But it's a very good question, and I'm happy to chat more about it in our MCP agent GitHub or Discord as well. Really good questions. Anyway, I just wanted to thank you, Ebony and Cliff, so much for also just sharing all of this fantastic stuff with us. I've learned a whole bunch across the board, and I think folks have a lot of links to go to kind of like continue learning more. So really appreciate your time. And yeah, please check out all the things that we shared today, folks. Really appreciate everybody being here. And have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.